Hello, everyone. This is Coach David Roditi. Another episode, our third episode of the One Coaches Pod. Majo, good
Hi.
morning.
Good morning. This is Majo Reyana, Associate Coach for the Beach Volleyball Program. We're so happy to be back. And remember, we're here just to entertain a little bit. David loves to entertain, to educate, and just kind of be with you with this college athletic experience.
Today, it's a little different than our first two podcasts. We have a guest, and there's more than one guest. We're going to start with one of our studs at TCU men's tennis program, one of our seniors, Luke Swan. Luke, welcome.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. Very happy and very excited to be here.
Can't wait to get it going. And then after Luke, you'll hear from his lovely mother, Nikki, visiting from Wichita, Kansas. And we'll explain the British accent here in a minute that I'm sure you're like, that doesn't sound like a Wichita, Kansas accent.
No, we've claimed it as a Wichita accent now. We've definitely claimed it.
All right. Yeah, well, it sounds really good. So let's dive right in. We have Luke Swan here. I've had the pleasure of being the coach for you or with you, coaching you in our program for 3 years now. And you've certainly stood out. And the reason why you're here tonight today is because you have a very, very interesting background and very interesting role on the team. And it's not your typical road coming from a different country. I'll let you tell us all about that. Moving to Wichita, Kansas, it's not like you moved to New York, you know, from England. And you also have a sibling, Katie Swan, who's a superstar tennis player, who's 4 years older than you. She's 25, you're 21. So, Luke, who is Luke Swan? Tell us who Luke Swan is.
That's a great question. Hopefully I can explain it as well as possible. Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me. So, Luke Swan, I like to give the my journey to, obviously, from England to Wichita, and then from Wichita to TCU. So moved to Wichita in 2013. I was 9, Katie was 13, turning 10 and 14. And I think at the time, I didn't really know at all what the move was going to look like, coming from England to, again, Wichita, Kansas. Literally, I would just explain it as the middle of nowhere to people. And for the first, honestly, 6 months of my time in Wichita, I was just like crying all the time to my mum and dad. I was like, I just want to go back to England. I want to go back and play football with my friends back at home. I missed it so much. It was a really tough move for me. But again, when I was 9, 10, I didn't really know. Obviously, now looking back on it, it was the best decision of all time because my parents knew what was best for us as a family, and I've absolutely loved every minute of my time in the States. Wichita was fantastic. Grew up there, had made some fantastic friends, got even closer with Katie and my mum and dad in every way possible, and then led me here to TCU. Obviously, like we said, I played on the tennis team for 3 years now, but my initial plan to come to college was not to play tennis at all. Finished playing in high school. Obviously, my sister played, and we tried to train together as much as possible, but then that never ended up working out because we would just get in fights with one another about who was a better tennis player.
Okay.
And then I basically decided I didn't want to play college athletics. It wasn't part of my path. I wanted to just enjoy a classic American college experience. Came to TCU just for all the great reasons, that it's an awesome school. And then about 6 months into my freshman year, I had the best time ever, but it was kind of like, maybe I should have tried to use some of my athleticism in college in some capacity. But I was also like, I don't want to leave TCU. There's in no way do I want to leave TCU. And I basically said, look, what is the chance I could be a walk-on athlete for TCU men's tennis? And I hounded Coach Roditi for 6-7 months. Tried everything I could to try and get a tryout. Eventually did, when we can talk more about that. But walked on to the TCU men's tennis team, and it's been an absolute blast ever since.
Oh my God, that was, when David told me about you, that you were trying out and your personality, and I kind of saw you, and I told David, you need him. This is going to be so good for your program. I was, I traveled with them a couple of times, for indoor nationals. And I'm like, there's something there that they need. And I see some girls on our team that have, they're not like you, but they have some common things that just make our team better. And I was like, man, it's just a game changer.
Thank
And
you,
you literally were a game changer for
Thank
the
you, Mara.
program.
It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, just bringing as many laughs as possible through the way.
You have to have
Luke's
that.
been an amazing addition to our program. One of the best decisions we ever made, and it was not easy. You're 100% right, Luke. I think we had probably 10 meetings, and it kind of went like, "Are you sure everything you're saying is really true?" And you kept promising. What was your whole promise to us? Remember those meetings?
Like, just to be the best teammate possible. Like, it was, I remember you telling me, it was like, we've got a lot of fantastic tennis players on this team. You're not gonna play. And I was like, yeah, I promise. I'll do my best to be the best teammate possible. What was? Am I right with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, yeah.
How many times did I say you're not going to play?
A lot, yeah, a lot. Yeah.
And by the way, you're undefeated.
I am undefeated
You
in
are
college.
undefeated. You'll probably
In dual
graduate.
matches.
You'll probably graduate with a. Is it 1-0? 1-0.
I'm 1-0.
Right?
I'm 1-0-1 because we didn't finish in the other match I played in. So,
Correct. You played
100%.
two other matches. Didn't you play a singles match too?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
That
that's right.
that one didn't count either.
That's
so
true.
that was
1-0 and 2.
only one set. Yeah.
I love it.
That's not too many people can say they graduate from college,
I'll take
Division
it.
One, on a national team, undefeated.
I'm expecting a plaque somewhere at some point.
Well, it might be one day. Yeah, we certainly put you through the ringer in the process, and I don't know if you know this, but you had friends on the team. You were in the club team, so you played for the club tennis team. You're every club student at TCU Tennis. You are their god, their idol, and because of Luke, I've had to have a lot of meetings with parents and players of the club teams. Like, well, Luke did it, I can do it. It's like, no, you're not Luke. You're not Luke. Luke's very, special and set of skills that, like Majo said, we needed greatly. But the guys on the team, you were buddies. They were the ones that kept pushing it.
Yeah.
How'd you know Jack and obviously British connection,
Yeah.
maybe?
So obviously, Katie, I wasn't part of the British tennis circuit. I grew up playing USTA, so I didn't really know many British tennis players other than the ones through my sister. And Louis Maxted came in freshman year. We came into TCU at the same time together. My sister told me, it was like, oh, there's this British guy coming to TCU. And Alistair Gray at the time was also a Brit that was on the team, and Cam, of course. And I met Louis freshman year, and we just hung out all the time. We always went to get lunch together. And then I think like second semester, I told him, or he came up to me, he was like, Swan, I heard a rumor like you're trying to walk on, like you want to be on this team. I was like, yeah, it would be really cool. Obviously, it's gonna be really hard. And he was like, okay, we're getting you on this team. We're getting you on this team. And then Jack Pennington-Jones came the next year, and he was a huge advocate for me to be on the team. And lucky enough, I ended up playing tennis for TCU, and those are some of my best friends in my life, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it.
So why then? What changed? You all throughout high school, the way I understand your stories, you were sort of jack of all trades. You played every sport possible. Even I heard you grew up playing cricket and rugby, and then you get to Wichita and they're like, cricket? What? Those things are just animals. They're not a sport. You trying to explain to your friends what cricket was probably at 10 years old was pretty funny. What changed? Why all of a sudden you were so adamant about not doing college athletics, and all of a sudden you did?
That's a great question. I think I would have to say part of it was because of my sister. And just in high school, you're always competing. You got to be part of high school sports. It's so much fun to play on a team. My high school tennis team, we won 2 state championships in my time there. It was incredible amount of fun. And I was like, kind of towards the end of it, I was like, I don't need to compete like this anymore. Like, I loved the time there. And then in my time in college, I saw my sister still on tour, absolutely crushing it. I'm her biggest fan, I always say, and I just loved seeing her compete. And I think it was really hard for me at the time to not be competing as well in my own journey. So she really pushed me to say, like, if you want to do this, I know you can. And play college tennis. So that was a huge part for me. And then just seeing the different teams in college, seeing you guys win a national championship my freshman year, I was like, holy cow, this is really cool. This would be really cool to be a part of it, and just be a part of a team again. When with tennis, it's such an individualized sport, and you get to do it all with a bunch of guys from all around the world and be a part of a team. I was like, that's an opportunity I really want to take advantage of if I get the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, well, we certainly didn't make it easy on you. We had to test you. You know, tell us about Katie's, for those listeners out there, Katie Swan, if they're not tennis fans. Tell us about sort of her success and how far she's gotten with her tennis.
Yeah, she's terrible. She's like the worst older sister of all time. No.
Yeah.
Katie, my older sister, is one of the, like, other than my parents, of course, like the biggest inspiration in my life. She was a finalist at Australian Open Juniors when she was 15, 16, which was so cool for me to see at the time, because I feel like I'm part of like the celebrity growing up, and I just loved following her journey. She was incredible in juniors, and then going as a pro, like playing at Wimbledon when she was 17, 18, for the next few years was just an incredible experience for me to be a part of that with her. And just growing up with a professional athlete, it's hard to compare it with anything else, because I would just always be bragging about her with my friends and with all the people in my life. So it was a cool experience.
That's pretty cool.
Can I ask you something? So I feel that you're very emotional aware, and you're very kind of like sharp on knowing what your team needs, what your teammates need. How do you kind of like prepare before a match, or what are you looking for on the guys? Because I know I see you coming in on the right moments and telling them the right thing. So what's going on in your head?
Yeah, again, great question. We talk about this all the time, me and Coach. It's like there's people in life that tend to just suck energy out the room, and there's a lot of people that just give energy as much as possible. And again, I go into these matches all the time, knowing I'm not going to play. So it's like, what can I do on this day to make sure I'm being the best teammate possible, and I can get the most out of my teammates, the guys that are actually playing on court. And that all starts with just positive vibes, great energy. Even if I'm having a down day, if I show them that I'm excited to be here, even though I'm not even getting the chance to play, that's going to make them realize, oh, okay, maybe I should actually really care about today, because there's a bunch of guys on the bench, including Swanee, that aren't going to get the chance to play, and they're still super excited to be there. So if I can do that on a daily basis, especially on match day, I know I'm going to get the best out of my teammates.
Yeah, and it's a lot of, as you said, like energy. It kind of drains you too, because you're kind of like receiving and trying to change the momentum sometimes, right? And it's hard, and I see like you lose your voice all the time.
I think it's finally recovering.
Yeah. But also, you know, we were just in Hawaii competing, and we have girls on the sidelines that they were just pouring themselves into the team, right? And just like knowing when to step in, knowing when to support, and just no voices. And then when we meet before the matches, it's like, what's your goal of this weekend? What's the goal of this match? And they're like, just to be empty. Yeah. And they're just pouring in, and we need them so much. And I don't know for you, but it's kind of like they know what I need too as a coach. And I think, Luke, same thing, like with your coach. It's not only with your players, right? With your teammates, it's with your coaches as well. What do you see sometimes that David needs from you?
I mean, you're pretty stressed most of the time, all the time on the court. So anything I say might stress you out even more. I don't know, my teammates love it. Like Jack's a great example. Like he knows I need to give him as much energy as possible, because it pushes him to be even better when he's playing.
Yeah, that's our best player, right? Yeah. And you have a great relationship with him.
Yeah, fantastic. And like off the court, we're very chill together. But as soon as it's match day, we know it's time to go. And what's really cool about our relationship now is Jack. He's going to be he almost is he's a top 300 tennis player. Probably going to be even better than that. Playing in a professional tournament this week, and he's told me, he's like, Swanee, like I know like a lot of these guys on the team like really look up to me because I'm such a great tennis player, but I need you to hold me accountable, because sometimes I can slack off, sometimes I don't want to be there on the days, and I give you full range to just get on me whenever I'm not giving enough and not giving a championship practice every time. And having that ability for him to say I can do that is really cool for me, because he's an incredible athlete, and I can get the best out of him sometimes. And I definitely do not have a psychology degree in college, so I don't know how I managed to get into that point. But
Well, that's what I wanted
really
to
fun.
ask you. I wanted to ask you that you're talking about a very high level of emotional awareness, emotional intelligence, EI, and not everybody has that. It's a skill. It's a skill that you've developed. Where does that come from? You know, can you think of it? Is that we'll talk to your mom,
Yeah.
and maybe I'll be asking your mom the same question. Where it's an unbelievable skill, your ability to read the room and read the players, give yourself to them, not expect anything back. Where'd you learn that?
I have to give, I mean, I feel like you already gave the answer. I have to give love to my parents, both my mom and my dad. And maybe it's just a trait I was just born with. I don't know if I grew up with it, but that was from a strong upbringing of my parents basically being like, in every sense, whenever you meet someone, whether that's like a 6-year-old friend on the playground or an adult, it's just give them as much respect as possible, get to know as many people as possible. And I've gotten to know a lot of people, and I just get to understand the way people interact with each other, what makes people tick. And again, this doesn't come like in a day of knowing someone. Like, I've known Jack for 3 years now, and I know what makes him tick. I know what gets him better. And some days I still get it wrong a lot because a lot of my teammates can change on a daily basis. But from my parents just raising me and understanding like you need to give us respect as many people as possible, and understanding that everyone deserves a chance and everyone deserves a chance to let you hear their story. And I'm very grateful for them and the way they raised me. And yeah, it's been fantastic. Yeah.
What? So you touched on it. We're going to talk to your mom here, and a lot of parents are listening out there. What would you, assuming your mom wasn't here, she was just listening, and your dad, Richard, what would you thank them the most for? What do you believe that them as parents did the greatest job with?
Yeah, I would say everything. Obviously, I've got to give something specific because the reason I keep going every day. I want to make them so proud in every way possible. I feel like I've already touched on it, but like they just always say, be as authentic as possible, be yourself no matter what, never change for whoever it is. Obviously you want to be respectful in times, but like I said, be authentic as possible, but always treat every single person ever with respect. No matter who you're meeting, and I'm fortunate, I'm a part of a lot of different organizations on campus where I get to hang out with the chancellor of TCU, but then I also am part of an organization called Bingo in the Park where we hang out with the homeless every Friday morning. And it's a fantastic experience. And I would never even think to give that time to those people if it wasn't for my mum and my dad saying, look, everyone deserves a chance for them to hear their story. And I'm so grateful for the way they raised me. I'm looking at my mum now, and I'm like stuttering. I don't know what more words I can get, but she's probably gonna start crying as well.
Love it.
But I just love them so much, and Katie as well. Both my parents and my sister having these 3 role models in my life to push me in every way possible, whether that's hard work, giving this respect, and just being the best version of yourself on a daily basis.
Yeah, and so you're looking, your parents kind of like taught you to respect everyone and to treat everyone the same. But I think that has kind of like given you that people respect you so much as well, because you're giving that to them first. So when I see you as like a human that gives, a human that is humble, but it's strong, and then humble means that you live by the truth, right? And you live by the truth. That's what your parents taught you, right? To be authentic. So it seems to be easy, but it's not as easy, right, to do. But just like, man, like I respect you as well. Like it is just like, and same as I respect all of my players, right? But being respectful kind of like gives you that you just are a big person in the room, because people like you, people appreciate you, and people know they can count on you.
Oh, thank you, Maha. And it's incredible. I'm so grateful that people like, I have these freshmen looking up to me now, and I say to my team is obviously I'm not the best tennis player on the team, but I want to help you grow as a person in every way possible. And it's very hard at times, like to constantly give. That's what you need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of your own mental state, your own mental health, it's really important. And for example, when we're practicing, that's the only time I really get to compete with the team. So I want to take full advantage of that and compete as much as possible. And it was really cool at National Indoors last week. I actually met 2 different walk-ons in different teams that had heard my story, and they said, I would love to just get on a phone call with you and see how you help lead your team, because I just want to be like you in every way. And that was a really cool,
That's pretty cool.
really
Yeah,
cool
that's
moment
really cool.
where I was just like, I didn't even realize like I got that respect from, obviously you guys say it all the time, and I'm very grateful for the amount of times you told me how much I mean to this team. But to hear it from guys from all over the country that are in the same shoes as me now, wanting to learn how they can be the best teammate possible was really cool, and I'm excited to have those conversations.
Well, you kind of touched on it, and we've had this conversation, but so everybody's got Swanee, right? Jack has a bad day, here comes Swanee. Whether you think you gotta make him laugh or just be next to him, not say a word because you might get your head chopped off if you say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So who takes care of Luke Swan?
Well,
Where do you go?
I've had my mum here for the last 3-4 days, so she's really taking care of me. That's a great question. Sleep is a big thing for me, and then just calling my parents and chatting to my sister is really nice. I'm fortunate, obviously from the athletic side, I'm always giving as much as possible, but my time really to shine is when I get to be in the business school and giving a presentation. I love doing that. I love marketing myself as much as possible. I feel like that's a time when I'm really recovering, because it's more of me and my element, and I'm very fortunate that's led me to where I am today, going post-grad, which is really nice. And just constantly giving love and sharing love, it's just, that always fills me up no matter what. So
Do you feel like you spread yourself to things sometimes?
yeah, I would say so. I think I don't like to say spread myself too thin, because everything I do, I give as much as possible. I might not be the exact amount of time you would think, but I know as soon as I walk in a room with whatever I'm giving, I'm going to be there 100%. I do think showing up matters so much more than people will ever imagine. For example, I had friends running the marathon yesterday morning before our match, and I was driving around trying to find some of my friends that were running it, and I literally was there for 45 seconds. I said hi to them, ran with them for 10 meters, and then got out. And they called me after and just said, thank you so much. You don't know how much that helped me. And it made me realize, once again, it's like showing up matters so much. You don't have to say anything. Just being there for your people makes the biggest difference in the world.
I love that, showing up. All right, so some guys might disagree with this, but you might be our best athlete or one of our best athletes. We have some great athletes on our team.
I'm taking that crown every time.
Are you? Yet you never really picked a sport, and now you're on the tennis team. Any regrets? Do you ever think about that? Like, what if I had committed myself to tennis, or maybe it's another sport? You ever think about that?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You're always going to what if in your life, but I definitely have zero regrets. I would not be where I am. I would not be sitting here today if I didn't have the exact same path. And obviously, my mum will speak more about it. But my sister took one path, playing tennis, and when they came to me, they wanted me to play as many different sports as possible. Which, it's funny now. Again, I think, like, what if I played nickelback and I was a corner / safety, Cooper DeJean role, like playing football? Definitely could have done that, but well, I definitely couldn't have done that, I should say. Keep the ego low. But I now, like, when I get to hang out with people, I'm so interested in so many different sports and so many different things that actually help me way more going into the business world post grad, which I'm super grateful for. So definitely zero regrets. And tennis was a tough sport to pick. It's a really tough sport. People don't really realize a lot of the time, because mentally it's just incredibly tough. And I'm so glad I went through the process of being a tennis player and then being part of a tennis team.
Did you, watching your sister, all the sacrifice she did, and we'll talk to your mom a lot about that, watching your sister go through the hard parts, like you said, tennis, I would argue, is the hardest sport to play in the world, and I'd be willing to get into that argument any day.
We get into those arguments.
Well, we can talk. We can talk.
Like, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah,
right now,
no, I'm ready for that any day.
I know you are.
Did it sway you from it, or was that an attractive part? Just watching your sister sacrifice, whether it was the high school experience, maybe more time with your parents.
Yeah, that's a great. I don't think I ever didn't want to play tennis because of Katie. A lot of times I did feel like at times in high school, and my mom knows this, like I felt like a lot of the time people were just asking me how Katie was because she's a professional athlete. She's such an incredible talent at such a young age, and people always be like, "Hey Luke, how are you doing? Oh wait, sorry, how's Katie doing?" That was a lot of the questions I would get asked at times. But
I hear the guys ask you about Katie all the time.
Yeah, they do. Everyone wants to.
So Luke's sister Katie, not only was she a great tennis player, but she was also very cute. Good genes here from the parents.
Very good genes.
She definitely got the looks out of the two siblings. And so she was also famous for being super cute, which obviously in athletics makes her even more popular. So anyway, I just wanted to say it.
My teammates can love that, of course. But I think the way she just went about, her discipline for her sport is incredible. And I was like, okay, if this sport is making her do all these little things, turning her into the person she is today, like I want to do that too. And also she's so knowledgeable about the sport. I was like, why would I pick another sport where I'm going to have to go out and learn all on my own or with other coaches when I've literally got a sibling that knows everything about the sport? And now we're at the point where we've kind of put our egos aside and we practice together a lot. We spent a lot of time in Arizona over Christmas practicing together, and it was incredible. We're giving each other different tips and tricks on mental side, tennis side, technical, and it was just so much fun that we just bounce off each other as much as possible now. And my sister asked me like a couple months ago, she was like, I want you to come do a couple of weeks with me when I'm going back on tour after our injury. Cool. And that was a really cool moment for me because I've always tried to look up to my sister, and she had like her saying, Luke, I want you to be there with me as sort of a coach hitter. That was a really cool moment for me, and I'm very grateful that she thought of me.
So you okay that you're gonna go in her world and you're gonna go back to being Katie's little brother?
Yeah, I'm very proud to say I'm Katie Swan's little brother. I know that she gets called Luke Swan's big sister sometimes.
Well,
now,
she does here.
Yeah, she does here.
Here.
That's right. So no, I'm very proud to be Katie Swan's little brother every day of the week, and I give all of that respect to my parents for raising us both the way we did, and I'm so happy that we have such an incredible family dynamic, and I'm change.
So I'm sure you weren't always such the perfect child growing up.
No, I'm still not.
Any stories where your mom, Nikki or Richard, had to pull your ears and show you that whatever was going on, you shouldn't?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say every single time that story happened, it was because I was with Katie. She was bringing the worst part. No, that's not true. I don't know. Off the top of my head, stories where I was just terrible. Probably just like I'd be after a high school basketball game, I just wouldn't text my parents where I was going after. And that made them really scared. I would say like to any kids listening to this, and parents, obviously the parents know this, but it's like communication with your parents is the most vital thing of all time. Like even if I text my mom like I'm okay, like that means the absolute world. And the fact that we're able to do that because we have phones nowadays, like I know my mom and dad weren't able to do that when they were hanging out with their friends when they were teenagers. It means the absolute world. So to any kids listening to this, I would say just tell your parents you love them as much as possible, and just tell them you're okay all the time whenever you're hanging out with your friends.
That's very sweet.
That's good.
Very nice. Well, Majo, I know we're running out of time here. Luke, for those of you listening, he's all lined up with a job at Nike. You know, I don't think I've ever met a student athlete that doesn't want to work for Nike. And Luke had an internship last year, did such a great job that they offer him a full-time job. So good luck with that.
Thank you so much.
We could do a whole, maybe you'll come back when you're like the CEO of Nike and do our podcast.
Bit more of an important
just
guest.
Remember, don't charge us.
I will.
Majo, any last question for Mr. Swan here?
No, I'm just grateful to have met you, and you know, like you're way younger than us, but I look up to you.
Oh.
So you bright up a room, you make your team better. And you're not only making your team better, you're making TCU athletics, and you're creating a bigger impact everywhere. So you're showing up for everyone, not just for your teammates.
Thank you,
So thanks
Majo.
for that. Keep doing it.
You guys are incredible. Thank you for being here to share different stories. I know there's a lot of parents out there that really, really appreciate this podcast. So thank you guys so much, and fantastic job this weekend with the girls. I'm excited to see them.
Thank you, Luke.
You guys
We'll
are the best.
remember that. Show up and text your parents.
Yeah, two very
I'll
important.
text my mom.
Yeah.
I still live with my mom. I'm proud of that. 51 years old. Anyways, thank you, Luke. Great having
guys.
you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. We're back. Now we just finished speaking with our student athlete, Luke Swan, and we're very happy and very lucky to have his mother, Nikki Swan.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. This is a treat for us. I know you live in Wichita and you came to watch a match this weekend, and we made you stay an extra day because we wanna hear from you. I want parenting tips. Done such an amazing job yourself and Richard with not just Luke but Katie. Majo.
Yeah. Well, for you to know, we started, like, we had the idea of this podcast not that long ago, but like brainstorming, not even like starting, not even like meeting with Sam and Gabby. We already had you guys on the list.
Oh,
Like,
so
we
nice.
need to have them here. Like, this is kind of like why we're doing this, right? This is why, you know, and we're having fun to doing it, and we just like to talk to really
Love
cool
that.
people.
Love that.
So thanks for being here.
Well, thank you so much.
So Nikki, share with us, with our listeners. You came from England. You and your husband. You have 2 kids. Tell us about how that came about and the tough decisions and the uncertainty of moving to a whole different country. And you have at the time a teenage daughter that I'm sure wasn't quite easy. And then little Luke is 9, 10 years old, just running around. Tell us about all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we spent 2 years in Connecticut. Luke was actually born in Connecticut. And we went back to the UK. And I'd actually said to my husband at the time, please don't ask me to move abroad again. I was really happy back in the UK. The children were doing great in school. And then this opportunity came up in Wichita, Kansas. And Richard was like, I think I'm going to ask you to move. And to be honest, we were really worried about Katie. She was nearly 14. She was doing really well with her tennis. She was about to start at a new school. Luke, we thought, he's so easy, he'll be fine. And it was completely the opposite. He was completely devastated. He cried. And literally when we left the UK, left our house, he was hugging his bedroom wall, like we had to unpeel him. And
That's hilarious.
we moved to Wichita, Kansas in February 2013. So 12 years ago, almost to the date. And we had their first few days of school were snow days. We had such heavy snow. And our daughter, Katie, just settled in immediately, made friends, just loved it, loved the tennis setup. And Luke really struggled. He was just really sad, missing his friends. He went from loving rugby, cricket, field hockey, and then moving to American football, baseball. So it took a few months for him. As a family, we settled in Wichita, Kansas. The people are just amazing. They're so kind, so friendly, just a lovely quality of life. But it definitely took Luke a good 6 months to really start to adjust. And then, obviously as the years went by, he made lots of friends, started to find his niche in terms of sports that he really, really enjoyed, really did well academically. But then we obviously had these 2 very different paths with our daughter. Really, I mean, she was already doing really well in the UK and Europe, and then moved to the US and was doing really well on the ITF Junior Tour. And so we were juggling really what to do with her because she was in school. She went to the end of 8th grade, then went to high school, but she was spending more and more time away traveling. So trying to juggle the academics. I'm very old school in terms of we've got to have a formal education. I didn't really know anything about online schooling. And then Luke, 4 years younger, is coming through middle school. So that was a challenging time just to start to think about, okay, how do we juggle doing the best for our daughter, but also making sure our son's happy and making sure we continue this family life. So, so yeah, that was us in Wichita, Kansas in 2013, 2014.
Yeah,
12 years ago.
that couldn't be easy because for Katie, starting to play ITFs, we all know how much travel that takes, and you got to play sort of that game of getting your ranking in the world up. And I can't imagine too many direct flights from Wichita, Kansas to London or Spain or wherever she had to go. So I'm sure that put a strain in the family. And
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I mean, that's a lot. There's a lot going on there,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it wasn't easy.
No, absolutely. So the traveling was an interesting one. So I'd had a full-time job back in the UK, so I'd stopped. I carried on a consulting role in the US, but I had a bit more flexibility. I wasn't having to go into an office every day. But, I had a young child, Luke was 10, 11, in school. We didn't know anybody, so starting to think about, okay, who's going to travel with Katie? She was very lucky. She started working actually with the Wichita State women's tennis coach. He did some top part-time work, so he was able to travel a little bit with her. My husband wasn't traveling as much as he had been in the UK with his job, so he was at least based at home. So if I needed to go away and travel with Katie, I could. But I also didn't want to be away from Luke too much. So I think we did quite well with finding some people that could travel with Katie when I couldn't. She progressed up the rankings pretty quickly. There's obviously in the US there's a lot of tournaments, so it was relatively easy to get to tournaments with her. But we went to some really, quite random places, and we ended up in. She got a collapsed lung in Guatemala, for example.
Wow.
I get a call to say my daughter's in the final, and then I get
I'm
a call.
from Guatemala.
So I get a call. Well, they were unbelievable. We had an amazing experience, but I get a call from the coach say Katie's in the final, and then the next call is doesn't seem very well. She's got a collapsed lung. So,
Wow.
like you say, trying to get to Wichita, I'm like, oh my God, I need to get to Guatemala. And the thing with the collapsed lung, you can't fly. So we then spent a week in Guatemala while her lung recovered to then be able to fly home. So, and by that point, being in the US, it's much more common for people to start doing the online schooling as high school athletes. So our high school had been absolutely incredible around trying to be very flexible with her travel, but this is way before remote. Now it'd be quite easy to work remotely with
Since
COVID.
Yeah.
But at the time, the head of the high school, he was so lovely, but even he started to say, this is really tricky for us to manage, because she could be away for 6 weeks. So we switched to online schooling. And
At what age? What age did you switch?
she went into her sophomore year of high school, and then we said, actually, it's just getting too difficult. So she was about 16.
In nowadays, that's unusual.
Yeah.
You see a lot of them. What would you say to parents about that? About you had a superstar. She was number 2 junior in the world at 16, 17 years old. And yet she was in a full-time school in Wichita, Kansas. I feel like I'm just picking on Wichita, Kansas so much, but it really is not, it's not New York, LA, Dallas. You're not, like Luke said, middle of nowhere. Actually, Salina, Kansas is the middlemost city in the United States. I don't know if you know that. So you were close to the middle of the country. What would you say to parents about that? Education, full-time versus part-time?
I think the first thing I would say is, in my opinion, you don't need to take your child out of full-time education at a really young age. So Katie did have friends that from 8, 9, 10 were doing online schooling. I felt personally, I'd say it's very personal, that's too young. I think Katie really benefited from being part of other groups of friends. She played team sports right up to 14, and I loved that. I love that she was involved in playing different sports. She was a very good field hockey player. She was a really good runner. So she did lots of different things. Definitely, again, it's in my experience, my opinion, I think would be really good to keep children right up until high school. So maybe freshman year of high school, I think then you can start to look at different opportunities. I think it's really tough when children go off to academies at very young ages. I think a lot of these academies do a phenomenal job, but I think it can split up the family, because often one of the parents will go with the child, or the child goes off on their own. And I've just heard so many different stories about how stressful that's been for the child. And then ultimately they've just given up because it was too tough to be away from home. They were struggling academically. They didn't feel part of a team. So I think there's an opportunity just to keep your child in school and doing different sports. I know it's really hard when tennis particularly, where it's such an individual sport and they have to focus at quite a young age. But I think for Katie, we used to think, so for example, some of the English sports she played, like field hockey, like netball, which I know is not an American sport, but you learn things like spatial awareness. You develop as an athlete, with volleyball, just the hand-eye coordination that you can develop through other sports, I think is really, really important. And I've seen too many examples of particularly girls, boys not so much, but particularly girls where they focused on tennis from a really, really young age, given up all the other sports. And by 15, 16, they've just had enough. So, that's...
Well, and then you get into the overuse injuries from being so specific from a very young age. Maho?
Yeah, one thing that I'm hearing a lot from you is that balance, right? Like family balance, sport balance, all that stuff. And I agree with you, for kids to learn different sports and learn mostly if like they're gonna pursue like an individual sport, be able to be part of a team at some point in their lives, right? And then just like that, how to develop their brain and their body to different things, adapt, right? You want to be able to adapt, and playing different sports gives you that. I also hear a lot about the family balance, right? And the family dynamics. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that's a lot of planning, right? A lot of probably like conversations with your husband about, hey, should we keep Katie and Luke in this sport, in this school? What's the good timing for her to just like go directly to tennis, or the switching with the online school, or all that stuff? So a lot of communication, right? And I think that's important, because sometimes I see it a lot of parents that they're very focused on their kids, and they're very focused on like what's the next step and what's the best for them, and getting them like coaching, getting them private lessons, and getting them into academy and all that stuff. And sometimes they don't take care of the family balance and family dynamics. So tell us a little bit about how you both handle that.
I think from quite a young age with Katie, I was really conscious, we were really conscious about trying to have as normal a childhood, because you don't want your child to stand out. Girls in particular, they can be quite difficult. And if Katie's away, from the age of 10, 11, 12, for periods of time, then comes back into school, okay, how do you manage those friendships, for example? So we always had a lot of sleepovers. We always had, always when she was home, I'd make sure she had a group of friends that would come over for a sleepover. We tried to always do family meals. We'd always make sure we had at least one vacation as a family. Looking back, that was always quite hard, because if I'm honest, it was always trying to like around nationals, or around, we didn't go on a skiing holiday because we didn't want Katie to get injured. And she's got plenty of tennis friends that go skiing all the time, but I look back and think, were we a bit too particular about that? But we did at least make sure we had those family times, and obviously like, around key holidays like Christmas and now Thanksgiving, we can try and be together as a family. But when she was home, to just try and make it as normal as possible, because when you've got so much focus on you as an individual, you can get quite a big ego, and you can be quite self-centered. I think you have to be as an individual tennis player.
Are you talking about Luke now?
And Luke would laugh. So from a really young age, when we used to traipse him around to tournaments, he always got Lego, so that became a thing. I don't mind going to a tennis tournament with Katie, because my mum will buy me Lego, because then I'll make my Lego. But he was the sort of kid, he honestly could get a stick and a stone and he could make a game out of that. Whereas Katie was like, what's next? So you'd plan a day, and then she'd still be, okay, well, what will we be doing at 6 o'clock? And whereas Luke was just always quite happy to just fit in.
Maybe that's where he developed that emotional intelligence, just being, it happens a lot, right? When you have a sort of a superstar oldest sibling, the young one is gaining all these skills and learning through watching.
Yeah.
And he's playing a role on our team of making everybody else better and get them to perform in the moment. I wonder if some of that was being around these high pressure matches for older sister.
And I just remember, so I was with Katie in Australia when she made the final of the Australian Open at 15, and we had a babysitter with Luke, and I remember the video that the babysitter showed me of Luke watching the scoreline. I think this was to get into the final, and he is just like screaming and laughing and so joyful, and I thought, how do I protect that? Because is he going to start at some point? He's so proud of her and he's so supportive. So he would have been 11 then. And as the years went by, I was always quite conscious of, okay, how do we make him feel as important and as special? And there was one moment, because he was always so good about everything, but one moment when he did say to me, why didn't you push me more? And I'll always remember that, because that was the moment I was dreading, like, okay, have we not given him the opportunities that we gave Katie? But we had such a good conversation. He was probably like 14, 15. And I said, but you're just a different child. You wanted to do a bit everything. You love being involved in everything. And so actually, Katie was so, she used to nag at, like, when's my next tennis lesson? When I'm going to do this? She'd hit 1,000 balls. You know, she just, no, I want to hit 1,000 balls. Whereas he was like, okay, good. I want to go play soccer now. I want to go and play cricket now. I want to go and play baseball now, whatever it was. So, but I did think to myself, did we shortchange him with not giving him those opportunities? But so when he then came to me and to Richard, my husband, and said, oh, actually, what Luke didn't mention earlier was that he went on tour with Katie that summer at the end of his freshman year. So he spent some time with Katie, went to Wimbledon with her, and that's when he really observed her work ethic. And then he came back and said, look, I want more. I really want to work hard and see if I can possibly get a place on the TCU men's team. And we weren't expecting that at all.
This is freshman year in college.
Yeah. Freshman year. And I think he'd obviously been thinking about it for several months, but I think then going away with Katie, being on the road with her, seeing how professional she was, how hard she worked, how dedicated she was, he then was coming back thinking, okay, I want more for myself from a competitive standpoint. And I didn't doubt he put the work in. You know, he was really right. Okay, this is what I got to do. I was nervous for him, but I thought, okay, well, we're going to support him. But he did it all on his own. You know, he was the one. I didn't even realize till today how many meetings you had.
Well, we just, it wasn't up to him. It was us. Like, are you sure you're going to do what you said you're going to do? It's not easy. You're basically there for everybody else.
Yeah.
And making sure that we added the right person. I mean, we kind of had a gut feeling that he was, but we just kept making him repeat and repeat it.
I love that. I love that you made it tough for him. But I think, you know, as a parent, you just always feel guilty. You know, you always worry, God, am I doing the right thing? I do enough of this. I do too much of that. You know, did we give Katie too much independence? Are we too involved? Are we, you know, so I think most parents are going to just be giving themselves a hard time. But I think, you know, you try and do the best thing for your child, don't you? Try and help and support them, but you know, you don't always get it right.
So what would you say to those parents? I mean, do you just follow your gut? Are there certain values that you sort of non-negotiables that you relied on? Yeah.
So I was talking to a parent of a 10-year-old the other day about this. It's actually, so the first thing for Richard and I was always to love them, to be proud of them. A coach told me very early on when Katie was very young, try not to over celebrate the wins. Don't make a big fuss about the wins, so that and don't make a big fuss about the losses. You know, you don't want the child being scared of losing. Katie's very, very first tennis match on Red's ball, I saw a man slap his child when he lost.
Oh wow!
I'll never forget it, and I was so shocked. I was all done then. I thought, oh, we're not doing this sport. This is horrendous. So I've seen some really awful behaviour over the years, but I've seen some really incredible. I've seen parents hug, you know, when they've lost a really tough match, and we're just so proud of you, we just love you, you're amazing. But I've also seen some pretty horrific behaviour. So I thought to I remember thinking, I'd never want to be that parent. From a young age, also to, like Luke was saying about being respectful. So you saw some pretty horrific behaviour on court, and said to Katie and to Luke, you know, if you ever threw your racket, if you were ever rude to an opponent or an umpire or whoever, I wouldn't care if you were winning that match, I would drag you off court so quickly, you know. So I think they were, we overdid that.
My mom probably is listening, wishing that she would have learned that lesson. I don't think I would have made it through the first match I ever played.
So that, my kids would probably say, yeah, you were a bit hard on us on that. But I just think, okay, you have to be respectful.
I do hear you were pretty strict. Would you say you were strict parents? And what about were you strict, and what weren't you so strict about?
yeah, my kids would say, oh, I think we're strict around manners, please and thank yous, bedtime. So Katie used to give me such a hard time. When I go to so-and-so's house, we get to stay up until 3 a.m. when they're 11. I'm like, okay, but you're also foul when you come home when you've had 3-4 hours sleep.
Right,
So
right.
she could have as many kids over for a sleepover, and so could Luke, but, you know, they'd have lights out at a certain time. So I think always having healthy food, you know, just trying to eat properly and sleep. But I hope they feel they've had lots of fun. We've done lots of fun things, and they've had lots of freedom as well. So Luke's obviously mentioned about, yeah, text your parents, but I want you to go out and have friends, have fun with your friends, but just let us know you're safe. Just let us know you're okay. Yeah.
So Katie, superstar at 18, she's gotten as high as 100.
She's been like around, I think, 118, 120 is her top
Okay.
ranking. Yeah. So it's been a tough road for Katie. She's had a really, really tough year. She's had some huge successes, some amazing experiences. So incredibly proud of her. But she's had a lot of challenges physically. So her last year has been very tough. You know, she's dropped right down the rankings now because she hasn't been able to compete. But she's at a point now where she's surrounded by some amazing people who've really got to the source of what her injury woes have been. And that's one thing I would say, what I've really learned. Okay, there's so much pressure to just keep competing. But, you know, parents know their children better than anybody, even when they're adults. And you think, I kept thinking to myself, we need to get to the source of what this problem is. And I feel like I probably should have stepped in soon and say, right, we've got to stop. We need to go and see some specialists, and we need to understand really what's going on here. So she's gone from really thinking she's not going to be able to compete again to now having hope because she's seen a specialist. They have got to the root of the problem, and she's hoping to be back on tour very soon. So that's really, really exciting for her. And we're really proud of her resilience for managing all of this. But it's, you know, the injury stuff is tough.
Yeah,
It's
she's
tough.
still young. She's 25 years old. You know,
Well, that's
sometimes you
interesting.
feel like you're so old
Yeah,
at 25 as a tennis player, but you're not.
I think that's such a good comment though, because that's what the coach that she's working now with, a guy called Jared Jacobs, who's an amazing guy. He's worked with Danielle Collins over the world. Just got phenomenal experience. He's just amazing. But he's the kind of first one that said to her, actually, Katie, you're really young. You're 25 years of age. Rather than, you know, you've only got a few more years left. If you don't pull yourself together soon, you're done.
Right.
So I've loved that approach that he's taken with her. And one thing I want to say, kind of going back to Luke. So we have the Wichita Tennis Open 25K that we host every year, the boys tournament. So last few summers we've had a few TCU tennis players come and stay with us.
Yeah,
And,
you gave housing to one of our transfers. I
well,
couldn't believe that.
I didn't know he was going to be a
I mean,
transfer.
the
I
guy
agreed to-
transfers right after the NCAAs, and then you give him free housing.
Yeah, but
You're a much better person than I am.
so, but it doesn't matter who said this, but one of your players, either former or current, he said something. He was talking about Luke and how valuable Luke has been to the team, and he said to me, you know what, Nikki, coach is really, really tough on Luke. Like, he gives him a really tough time. But when you must have done like an end of season speech, and he said, you know, talked about all the players, and when he started talking about Luke, then he got really emotional. And he said, I will tell you, I know how much your son means to our coach. And that meant so much to me, because, you know, sometimes for them, the validation is, you know, I'm playing, and Luke knows he's not going to play. But I think just for the players to see, actually, yeah, he can be hard on this kid, but he means a lot to him. So I thought it was really a mature thing for that young man to tell me as his mother, but just how much he meant to you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. I hope that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, the bar is pretty high for your son. I saw that award. I don't know if you remember, 8th grade. He won the award. And I've never heard so many positive adjectives in describing a child, a 14-year-old boy. He wins the 8th grade, like, student of the year. And every professor, every teacher there at school gave about 15 or 20 adjectives, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the greatest 5 minutes of any human. Just think of as many adjectives. So you know, something that I really admire about Luke is that he chose to be on the tennis team. knowing that I bet that was the hardest, most challenging part of his day was to go from being a stud on campus, successful student, a Neely Fellow, which is a very elite group of students, Mr. Social Butterfly, fraternity boy, Barstool's representative, and then he goes to tennis and he's the worst player on our team, and yet his attitude in practice was amazing. He would not accept defeat. He would practice just like he was going to play number one the next day, knowing that he wasn't. And I admire that so much, because it would be so easy for him to be like, well, I'm not playing. I'm just the guy here making everybody else better. But he was leading by example as well. So, yeah, I'm pretty tough on him. I knew that. There were times where I would catch myself like, hey, take it easy. I brag about him in a way that maybe he doesn't appreciate it. When I tell his story, I go overboard and make it sound like he's never touched a tennis racket. And the whole point of that is just to illustrate of how he can be. I believe he was our MVP last year. I don't think we win it without him. And the more I talk about how bad he was in tennis, the more it reflects on what an amazing human is, and that's why we're here. I'm taking notes on you as a parent, but I hope that you see that as a good thing. That I was tough on him in a good way.
Absolutely. And he sees that as a really positive thing. But and I've made mistakes. I said to him recently, I said to him, you know, you're such an amazing cheerleader. And as soon as I said it, and he said to me, "I'm not just a cheerleader." I went, I didn't mean it like that.
We're gonna get him some pom-poms.
I didn't mean
He would
it.
look
Yeah,
good in it with pom-poms.
I
We
know
can
you
do that.
have, but one of the many qualities you have, that is also another thing. You know, and it's tough. You've got to put your ego to one side and think, well, I'm here, like you said, you know, I've got to be here for the team. But I've seen him with those boys and how much they love him and respect him. And, you know, I'm inspired by how he goes about his day and does what he does. So,
Well, we've talked about owning your role,
Yeah.
and I know, Majo, you have a lot of girls that are play different roles at different times on your team. And his role, he knows on a daily basis what his role, whether it's a psychologist, like he said, with the teammates, sort of the counselor for the teammates, or he might be the guy that on the side pulls a guy and say, hey, you gotta do better than this. I'm sure he's done that. I feel like he's our fourth coach that we have, and his ability to understand and know what role he plays at the time is unbelievable. Because then he goes on campus and he's not the role player; he's the superstar, and be able to do that, go back and forth, I admire a lot. It's pretty cool. So did he get that from you or Rich? What do you? I was going to ask you. So personality, where does he get that? You or Rich?
okay. His father would say that we're the sentimental ones. They'd say we're way too sensitive but kind of outgoing. Katie and Richard are much more introvert, kind of analytical, black and white. So I don't know. He gets his work ethic, I'd like to say, from both of us, and he's very driven like his father. I think his probably giving personality. I'm very involved in not-for-profit work. So, and both the children, Richard and I have tried to bring them up to give back. That's really important. So, but what he does with bingo in the park, that's completely.
That's amazing.
He's
I
done
actually
that.
didn't even know that. I can't believe he.
You know, so
does it as well.
I went with him on Friday morning. That's an incredible
Awesome.
program, and these amazing people that have their own stories. That is the highlight of the week, meeting with this group of young people who give their time. So throughout his life, I think he's going to be somebody that's going to want to give back. One thing that Rich and I we've always talked to them both about, and you know, I think they're both very good about this, is just it's one thing to be interesting, you know, and tell your story, but just always be interested, you know, ask questions, listen. And Luke's always been, from a very young age, just very focused on being intentional. I think he does a really, really good job of that. But he cares as well. You are family, both of you, and thank you so much to both of you, because you know, you've made him, you know, feel so valuable and so loved, and that means the world to us. So
Oh,
yeah.
he was very valuable.
Yeah.
He is. He is. He's still got one more
But
semester.
I think I'd like, going back to your question, I think I hope he's a good blend of both of us, actually. Both of
How
our,
about the athletic ability? Who's the athlete?
oh God, he's got to say his father, absolutely. His father. I mean, I played a lot of sport at school, and but no, absolutely,
How about
tennis is not from me
competitiveness?
at all.
Competitiveness.
They'll say me. They'll
Yeah,
say.
I had a feeling, I had a
I
feeling.
think that's really
That was what
unfair,
my
but
hunch was saying that.
I've got to accept it, because all three of them will say, yeah, I'm the most. Apparently, I'm horrible when it comes to card games and always want to win. So I'm gonna have to hold my hand up.
But that's a good thing. Be
yeah.
proud of that.
It is.
You're
But-
surrounded by competitive people. That's
Yeah.
But obviously the other night I watched you guys. It's just phenomenal. Your fight back during that match in the final against Wake Forest. But I think what we're all really good at is, so we reach out to Jack straight away. Just look, you were phenomenal. I don't want you to feel that was on your shoulders at the end. And I think Luke does a really good job. Yeah, obviously you're disappointed to lose. It's amazing when you win, but back to what we were told when Katie was 8 years of age, try not to over celebrate the success. Just be there for the losses. Because thinking back to last year, how much you guys learn from losing. That's what we've tried to do with Katie as well. Learn from the losses, because they hurt. You're going to win. You're going to lose a lot more than you're going to win, aren't you? So,
Yeah.
what do you learn from the losses? What would you do differently? And you take that into life as well in different situations. Okay, that didn't go very well. And the one thing with Luke, like you've said, I mean, he's such a positive person. So I worry sometimes as mum, how would I know if you were really unhappy? How would I know if something wasn't going well?
correct.
And so he's very good actually when it gets a bit too much, and he's a bit overwhelmed with whatever it is, to just share that. And I know, okay, yeah, enough. He's at his tipping point now. We just got to be a bit mindful of that, and like
So-
he said, get sleep. And
For those parents listening, if you have any 21, 22-year-old daughters and you want to know how to get a hold of Luke, this sounds like an infomercial. Like you should put this in your Tinder account or whatever, your social media. Might help
Great
you, might
catch,
help
great
your dating
catch.
life. I doubt that he has any time to be dating anybody, but he is single, as far as I know.
And he needs someone
To take care of him.
To take care of him.
He
yeah.
does. He
So
does.
he gets
The right
so
girl is
annoyed
out
when I
there
ask him
somewhere.
questions about his love life.
yeah.
I have some
he
good
gets so-
stories. Maybe not.
I bet you have some
maybe
great
not
stories.
appropriate
Maybe
for
not
this.
for this podcast.
We've
but-
done some analogies with his tennis game and his social life. I like to pick on that. Yeah, but he's too busy. He's too busy. She would be miserable. She would have to share him with everyone and everybody.
Well, you just kind of, you're busy too. Super busy.
Well, you're busy.
I'm not,
Everybody.
I'm not miserable next to you. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I love it.
That's a good start. That's a good start. Let's
Yeah,
set the
so that's
bar.
what I'm saying. You're saying she would be miserable, but you're all over the place. Sorry, but you are all the time. You have a lot going on.
And how do
And
you
I
manage
love
that,
that.
Maho?
How do I manage that? I'm busy too. So,
Yeah.
so
That's
yeah,
good.
just like
Works well.
knowing that I think like our relationship is a lot about support and yeah, a lot like love, support, but respect for each
Yeah.
other. And I think like we respect each other's jobs, each other's passions, each other's things that are in lives too. He has 2 boys and he has a lot going on, and I think as well, like respect everyone and support. I think those are the big things. But yeah, that's a lot about us. So I have a question for you, Nikki.
Okay.
Okay, so what about you? How do you take care of yourself? Because we have a lot of parents that just pour into their kids,
Yeah.
pour into their children. They're super stressed out about, are they getting into the college they want? They're putting all this time, all this effort, all this money in their sport, right? Is it going to pay off? And they're stressed about their kid. So how do you manage that on yourself,
Yeah.
and your husband, so that doesn't kind of like the kids don't feel the stress
Yeah.
as much, and you too, you're well balanced and you're grounded and you're happy and you're in peace with your decisions and all that stuff. I know
I
it's
think
a
that's
lot.
a really good question. I think it's what you said. I've always been really busy. I have my own career. I'm can't quite bring myself to say I'm retired yet, but getting to that point. I do a lot of voluntary work. I love I play a lot of pickleball. Sorry, tennis players like pickleball, but
We're okay
I've-
with pickleball. We're okay.
Yeah.
I'm an amazing group of people that I play pickleball with regularly. I love going to different classes, spending time with friends. So I think it's really important that you kind of keep your own identity. And I've seen that with some friends over the years where their identity is their child's tennis. And I think that's dangerous. So I think, to be able to back off and think, okay, let them have a little bit of space, and just do something for you, whether it is working, whether it's voluntary work, whether it's personal hobbies and interests. But yeah. So I think that from my experience, just having your own identity. So it's important in a relationship, isn't it? Just not just as a tennis parent, but so you want to be supportive and involved, but not there every minute of every day.
Yeah, because also I feel like sometimes what I see too is that because the parents are so involved and it's so important, right? And I'm not saying it's not, but then the kid feels it that if I lose, this is gonna ruin my mom's, my dad's day as well. So it's a huge pressure, I think.
Absolutely. And I've seen that a lot on the tour. I mean, a lot of players, male and female, have their parent as a coach, so they're traveling with them all the time.
Yeah, you see that a lot on the female side, especially.
And then you find out there are other siblings, so those other siblings aren't really having a relationship with their parent because they're away all the time.
Right.
I would never claim to be a coach to my child, but I think that must be pretty tough. And it just feels like, of course, then when something goes wrong or the child gets injured or maybe they don't love it as much, it's just the world comes crashing down. Whereas I think for us, I mean, obviously it's been very tough having Katie managing these injuries, but it's not the end of the world for us. She can do lots of other things if she's not going to be a professional tennis player. Hopefully she still has that path, and that's fantastic. And we're incredibly proud of her, but we've watched her do lots. I mean, she's been doing a lot of coaching, and that's been amazing for her to have life as a coach as well, and experience it from the other side. And so absolutely, I think just try not to tunnel everything into the child and the sport, because it's very hard if that doesn't go as planned.
Well, I've noticed even the way you answer questions about Luke and Katie, you always refer to them like it was their path. The way you never use we when you were talking about her career or his path. It was always Luke and Katie. And it's funny when you talk to a lot of parents, they're talking about their kids' tennis, let's say, and say, well, we lost. And I correct them right on the spot. I'm like, you didn't play. You mean Katie lost.
Yeah.
And so, no, I did pick that up. So this is a D1 coaches pod. We have parents, I assume, that may have a young child or a high school kid looking into the whole Division One. There's all sorts of levels. You had Luke, who was just doing everything he could and hoping that he would get a chance to be a D1 athlete, which he got in very unusual circumstances. For those of you listening, it's not normal to decide after your freshman year in college that you're going to go make the team. It doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 99.9 of the time it doesn't happen, so I don't want parents to think that that's normal. It's not. Very special circumstances. And then you have the other spectrum. You have the number 2 junior in the world. What advice, have you ever talked to Katie about whether she would have enjoyed college tennis, and maybe, has that conversation ever come up?
Yeah, absolutely. So when she was 16, 17, obviously there were lots of opportunities for her to go to college. And I certainly was really excited about that opportunity for her. She wasn't. She was not interested. And I remember at one point she had all these amazing offers.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody.
Amazing coaches talking to us. I had one coach actually say at a really, really top school, she can just give us one semester. If she just gives us one semester, she'll have a scholarship for life. She can come back and complete her degree. So to me, I'm like, it's amazing.
It's a no-brainer.
But it wasn't amazing to her. I mean, at the time, you can only earn $10,000. It's a very different landscape now with NIL. And I remember her saying to me, every time you keep talking to me about college makes me feel you don't think I'm going to make it.
You don't believe in me. Yeah.
And that was quite a hard thing to hear, but it was very honest and brave of her to say that. So that was kind of letting go then, okay. But interesting now, she's been really great with some of the younger girls, particularly the British girls that she knows well, that she's talked to and said, I think college could be an amazing route for you to go down. And she's really positive. She's seen what Luke's gone through and just the experience of being part of a team. So if she was now looking at colleges now with the landscape as it is now with NIL and with just the opportunities at college, I think she would feel very differently. But I think it's fair to say the landscape of college tennis has changed dramatically in the 10 years since she was considering that as an option. So it's been really amazing for me to see it from both sides. I think at the time, 10 years ago, well, sorry, she would have been 8, so like 7 years ago, there weren't so many examples of women being really successful coming out of college and then going on the pro tour. At the there were a few, you know, I think Danielle Collins was at college.
Danielle Collins was coming up.
But
Lisa
now,
Raymond,
now there are so
day.
many girls that have burst into the top 100 that have actually had a year or
Top
two.
10, right?
Yeah, amazing.
Navarro.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, incredible.
Right.
That have had those experiences where we also knew a couple of people that had gone down the college route and hadn't had the best experience. They'd been overplayed, they were injured. So they came out of college tennis feeling, well, I think that kind of ruined my potential to have a career as a pro tennis player. I think that's very different now. I think, again, you know, much more care is taken of the players, male and female, to make sure they're healthy and fit and get all the right nutrition, the right physical training, physical therapy. So, yes. So in answer to your question, now she would be very, very positive about females and males going to
And this
have
is
the
somebody
college
who is number
experience.
2 in the world. That's interesting that she would say, yeah, I would consider it today if I was 17 again.
Because there's so much pressure at such a young age. And I think then just to almost go under the radar a little bit, go off to college, meet some different people, have some fun, be part of a team. Because like Luke said earlier, you're on the junior top. I mean, you play for your country. So when you play as a junior, you do what's now the Billie
Junior
Jean King
Davis
Cup.
Cup,
Yeah.
Fed Cup. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I mean, Katie's been very fortunate to play on the Billie Jean King Cup for Great Britain. And that's been, without doubt, you know, one of the best experiences of her life. But that's very few and far between. You know, whereas college, obviously, week in, week out, you are playing as part of a team.
It's a lonely world out there on the
so
tour.
Lonely. And you see, I mean, they have friends, but you know, ultimately they're competitors. So it's really
it's a little tougher
tough.
on the women's side when it comes to competition.
Yeah.
It's the guys are a little bit better about battling on the court and then go have a beer after.
Yeah.
Whereas on the women's side it doesn't work quite that well.
I mean, I've seen it, Katie. She's got some amazing friends back in, particularly in the UK. She's been based in the UK, and that's another part. You know, she then chose to go back to the UK and live there and train. She's now back in the US, but you know, the British girls that she's got to know over the years, you know, they're gorgeous, they're lovely people, they're great friends, but they're still competitors. You know, still competitors. So it is tough, but I think it's an incredibly lonely sport for a female. And so you have to surround yourself with really, really good people that you trust, that will look after you and support you.
Well, thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
I won't tell Rich that you basically said that all their good attributes come from you.
No, absolutely
and all
not.
their weaknesses,
Just to be very clear.
weaknesses come from Rich. You know, he's not here to defend himself.
No, absolutely. Majority of their strengths would come from their father, not from their mother. But definitely the giving back.
I
bit,
definitely see the competitive. I definitely see the competitive.
Yeah. Now I'm getting competitive about it. Yeah. Where the traits come from.
Love it.
Hey, we love it.
Yeah.
Majo, anything you want to end with?
I think like huge takeaways, you know, about Luke was like showing up, but showing up 100%. I think like even if you show up for a little bit, you decide to go and be, you know, be your best, be authentic and give, right? And I think from you, I see a lot of wisdom and balance and just, you know, like listening to your kids, you know, what do they need. And so, yeah, I've been having a lot of fun and learning a lot
Well, it's
from Nikki and Luke.
it's a taste of fresh air to hear you. It still comes down to those values of
Respect.
good models. I mean, good manners, respect, dinner time, go to bed early, eat good food. It's amazing that we can talk about this superhumans, but it comes down to those fundamentals.
Just go catch a movie. Just go. One thing I'd like to add as well. the sport's really important, but just getting them to do other things like creative things. Like Katie loves playing the piano. Luke was in a band at school, so played the clarinet. And I think your children. I mean, he loves
like to see a
singing.
picture of that.
He loves sing. He was what's his name? Troy Bolton in High School Musical as a freshman. But I think
I can see that.
that's another thing. Just the parents. It doesn't have to be other sports. Just fun things that they like doing. You see, so many tennis players are such incredible artists, or they're just very creative. So just having an outlet that isn't always sport can be a good thing.
Not all about the tennis, not
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
That's great. I love what you said also about not that the losses are not the end of the world,
Yeah.
and then the wins are not also the greatest.
We saw it
Ever,
on
you know.
when Katie was 10, you know, and the dad was saying to his daughter, if you win this tournament, I'm going to buy you, blah, blah, blah. And so it's, they
Yeah,
don't
that
need to
only
hear
lasts-
that.
yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
need to hear that. So that would definitely be advice
Well,
as well.
thank you, Nikki. Thank you
Yeah,
for
Thank you for
Thank you
everything
so
you've done for our
postponing
son.
your trip back home.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day to be driving, better than a
It's
week
much
ago
better
when
than
you
coming
came
through the blizzards,
through the blizzards.
to watch you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank
really,
you.
thank you for trusting us with your child. He's been great. I
Grown
hope
man.
he
We're
doesn't
proud of him.
forget
So
about
proud
us.
of him. Thank you.
When he's
Thank you,
a-
Maho. Thank you so much.
When he's running Nike one day, that he looks back at the Horn Frogs, maybe we get a pair of shoes or something like that. So, thank you, Nikki.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, it was awesome. Thanks.
Well, with that, from the courts,
To the sand. This is the D1 Coaches Pod. See you in the next set. Go Frogs.
go Frogs.
Go Frogs.